this man, Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, NFL insider, aficionado. Trev, we had an opportunity to visit with you at the NFL Combine. How you been, my man?
I've been great, guys. And, since we last talked, the NFL offseason has been kind to you guys, at least through the NFL draft. I know that we're going to dig into that, but I know that means you guys have to be doing well as well. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you letting me on the show tonight.
We love to talk to you. We love your enthusiasm. I think the audience obviously responds well to it. And when you talk about this offseason, when you talk about how well Monty Ossenfort navigated this draft, I saw you're not just talking about the picks that he got for the future of this team, but the picks he made this draft, you were really excited about.
Oh, dude, I love this class. This is one of my favorite classes. I mean, I know that we'll talk about the Paris Johnson move, but when you select the player that you were going to take anyways at number 3, and instead you fearlessly, I should say, navigate, because it's not like they just moved back from 3 to 6 and were like, all right, we're good. We know our guy's going to fall to us. They moved from 3 to 12, and then it took further maneuvers for them to get back up exactly where they needed where they wanted to be to pick the player that they wanted to pick. In doing so, you get a future first-round pick, a future third-round pick. I mean, that was just chef kiss, absolutely beautiful. I love B.J. Ojulari as well. He's one of my favorite pass rushers in this class. Really outside of the guys at the very top, really outside of Will Anderson. There was a lot of kind of pick your preference on these players. And B.J. Ojulari is somebody who really understands pass rushing, understands how to get to the quarterback, already has an array of moves in his pass rush arsenal. That's stuff that we go into every draft and we say, oh, well, when this guy learns some more moves, when he gets these things down, it's not a guarantee. And we already see that kind of approach to pass rushing from B.J. Ojulari at the college level. You figure that he's going to take that to the NFL. And so that's a really great baseline. I think Garrett Williams, the corner out of Syracuse, would have went even higher in this draft had he not torn his ACL. He's so smart. He's so instinctive. He's absolutely got starting potential. And then one of my favorite guys, I love Michael Wilson, man. I don't know where he's going to fit in this wide receiver room, just because I don't know what the Cardinals wide receiver attack is going to be, right? Because you're turning the page from Cliff Kingsbury, so you don't know exactly what that's going to be there. But Michael Wilson, he is a bigger, stronger wide receiver, gives you the ability to play him on the line of scrimmage as an X. He's a great blocker. He's a 2-time captain. He's somebody that for 3 straight seasons really was the go-to player, the go-to focal point in Stanford's passing attack. He was just hurt, unfortunately, a lot of the time. But when he was out there, they clearly wanted to run the offense through him. He's another player, so smart, a guy that you've already seen the light kind of come on at college. You're just waiting for that to continue at the NFL level. So I really do think that if you take the draft picks that they gained aside, Bo, you are right. These are 4 players who I think can all be starters that they hit on their first 4 picks, which to me is a home run of a draft.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air to Cardinal fans who, the draft has been an afterthought for this franchise under Steve Keim. It's a welcomed return to late April acquisitions. I want to talk about those draft picks, though, because we had heard leading up to the draft that day that Tennessee had an inkling to come up to 3, assuming C.J. Stroud was not going to go second overall, and it was going to be Will Anderson. The Cardinals had talked to Tennessee. They were putting out feelers. And then I believe Houston kind of got cold feet. They took C.J. Stroud. Their owner's very impulsive. How big of a deal, though, and how unprecedented, I should say, is it for a team like Arizona to get that kind of package from Houston for a non-quarterback in Will Anderson? Because I don't remember anything like this happening before.
Yeah, and clearly the love for Will Levis was not as universal as maybe it would have been for Anthony Richardson, right? We had teams that if they would have been in the hunt, let's say that it just would have been different, and maybe CJ Stroud would have still been on the board. Then all of a sudden, I think the package gets a lot higher. But the fact that he goes and then they know that they have to trade up for Will Anderson, well, really, it was just Will Anderson versus, I think, one other quarterback versus multiple quarterbacks. So I think that probably would have taken teams out of the running, out of the conversation. And with that in mind, I don't want to say took advantage, because that always sounds harsh, but I think they kind of took advantage of Houston saying we need to be good now. Nick Caserio, for as much as the Leonardo DiCaprio quote, the "I'm not leaving" thing, where he's like, people are trying to get. I really do think that if Caserio didn't make a major statement that people above him, ownership, they were going to get tired of it, because guess what? Houston's probably going to be bad this year again. Yeah. And can you stomach being bad and just going, well, we got CJ Stroud, so like we're cool with it? No, I really do think that they had to make a major splash, and they did with the coaching cycle, getting DeMeco Ryans in there as head coach. I think that was a great move. But then allowing DeMeco Ryans to have a guy like Will Anderson, one of the better players in this draft anyways, saying, hey, we have a cornerstone on offense, we have a cornerstone on defense, and we still do have a first-round pick next year. They don't have 2 next year, which they might regret, because next year's class actually looks kind of kick-ass, but they at least get to say, we've got those 2 guys in the building right now. So, it's a hat off to Monty Ossenfort in his first time in the GM chair, being able to really be comfortable. And I think the price maybe is not as impressive to me as the distance they went, because throughout the entire draft process, when I was thinking about partners for number 3 overall, I kept going to, okay, if the Raiders want to get involved at number 7, makes sense. If Chicago wanted to jump up for whatever reason at 9, maybe if the Falcons really wanted to move up to 3 I know they liked Paris Johnson Jr. a lot as well. So, if the Falcons wanted at 8, but I thought to myself, man, Tennessee trading up from 11 to 3, is Arizona in this class, which we already talked about, not really deep for stars at the very top of this draft. Was Arizona really going to go from 3 to 11? And I couldn't convince myself of that. So they end up going from 3 to 12. And then again, have the poise, the calmness, the confidence to then just go, okay, we're going to keep the phone lines hot. We're going to make sure that we can jump up for the right price to get back up to go get the guy that we think is going to fall a little bit further than number 3 that we would have taken at number 3. So to your original question, yes, it was a fantastic job getting that kind of a haul for a non-quarterback. But again, to me, it was even more impressive that they were willing to go as far as outside of the top 10 and then be savvy enough to jump back in it and go get their guy.
And it feels like the dominoes fell just incredibly well for Monty Ossenfort for it to be basically Houston and only Houston at that point, because 2024 draft pick outside of their own, the Cardinals, is more valuable than Houston's going forward. I mean, just based off projections, I know that everybody can surprise people, but let's talk about the savviness from a first-year GM, though. I mean, to go from 12 to diagnose how the board's going to fall and realize, hey, I got to get back up there. I got to get if I want Paris Johnson, I got to get him now, because if you look at how it went after that, they get Paris Johnson at 6, and then you have a run on tackles all the way down to like 12 or 13.
Yeah, and I think that's just, again, really great intel. And, I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is one of the first Arizona Cardinal drafts I've liked in like 3 or 4 years. And just when you just look at how they went about this entire thing, it was so clever to me, because just to your point, you're sitting there at number 3. And I think there are a lot of general managers that in their first draft as GM, they don't want to blow it, right? They don't want to get too cute with it. Paris Johnson Jr. was sitting there for them, right? They could have stayed at number 3, especially if the only great deal on the table, or the deal that would have been the most enticing to them, was to go all the way back to number 12. When you go all the way from 3 to 12, you are saying, not only are we not getting Paris Johnson Jr., we're probably not getting OT2 either. Like, we've got to be happy with however the board falls for us to get OT3 or OT4, unless you were very comfortable with the intel that you've gathered, knowing Indianapolis isn't going to take your guy, Seattle's not going to take your guy. And then you've probably had conversations already, maybe a little bit with Detroit, that said, hey, if we get in this situation, maybe we might want to look to trade back up. We're thinking about trading down, but we like to trade back up. So you've already primed it for a potential deal with Detroit. So again, I just think that there are a lot of general managers, and shoot, myself included, right? I can't say that if I was sitting in that exact chair, I don't know if I would have the confidence to do what he was able to do, that calmness and that confidence to be able to go from 3 to 12 and then back up to 6. And it was beautiful GM work to watch that happen. And that's why I've been telling Cardinals fans ever since the draft, you should be encouraged, not just for the players that were drafted, because look, guys, it's all a game of risk, right? First round picks, second round picks, third round pick. There's no guarantee in the NFL draft. I like all the guys that they drafted. No guarantee that they're going to be good. It's just how the NFL goes. But the way in which Austin Fort went about the draft, approached the quote unquote game of the NFL draft, if you will, and then the types of players that he went after, to me, that signals somebody who is going to get it right more than they're going to get it wrong. Nobody bats 1,000 in the NFL draft. No general manager does that. But the ones that survive and the ones that thrive are the ones that put them in a position to really hit that kind of luck and those good opportunities when they come about.
Let's talk about the crown jewel of this draft, and that's Paris Johnson Jr. And Bo and I talked about, potentially taking him at 3. A lot of Cardinal fans were kind of on the fence. Is that a reach? What about Will Anderson Jr.? I was a big fan, blue chip program in Ohio State, what he did against Georgia. His feet are exceptional, probably the best pure left tackle in this entire draft. Where do you think his ceiling is, and how quickly can he ascend to hopefully a Pro Bowl level talent, which they haven't had enough good offensive linemen in their tenure in Arizona, period. And this really does feel like the changing of the tide up front for Arizona.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that people know this about Paris Johnson as well. I don't know if he's going to be this all-pro type of offensive tackle right away, right? Even his Ohio State tape last year, it's his first year starting at left tackle. He was their right guard before, but why was he their right guard? Because he was so good, he was so talented. They knew he was their future at left tackle in Columbus, but they wanted to get him on the field. And so they played him at right guard. And it's funny, this guy who's got some of the longest arms and the longest wingspan of any offensive tackle type of player, they got that guy to play right tackle just because they really wanted to get him onto the field. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him because he is still working things out, marrying the footwork with the hands, exactly know when to strike with the hands and exactly how to play with good play balance. There's just things that adjusting to different pass rush moves, it's all still kind of new for him, but that's okay. He's a one-year starter. So I don't know if that necessarily means he's going to come out and be a starting offensive tackle for this team, left or right. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think the pick was good because, one, love his ceiling. I think athleticism, flexibility, hand usage, projection, the fact that he has started at both the right and the left side of the line of scrimmage, which tells you how natural of just an offensive lineman he is. I've gotten to know his family a little bit throughout this draft process, had the chance to meet them. And so I know his background a lot. Everybody who ever meets the kid is just like, wow, phenomenal kid, phenomenal human being. You know that he's going to work his ass off, whatever his ceiling is. You think he's going to work his butt off to really try to achieve that. And so that's something that you love. You love to check that box as well, have that kind of confidence. And I think it's the right pick because the Cardinals are rebuilding. They are. They are at a point where, especially given the draft picks that they acquired for next year's draft, this is at least a 2-year rebuild here. That's the way you got to look at it. You've got to look at this team and say it was constructed for a coach who was unique in his approach anyways in Cliff Kingsbury, and it didn't work. So who's to say whether Gannon himself is going to be the exact guy that they need to lead this team? But whatever core Kingsbury kind of put together, I think a lot of those pieces have to be dismantled. That's why, you let some of those guys walk in free agency. That's why you make an effort to acquire more premium draft picks. And so investing in the trenches when you are starting what is a rebuild, to me, is always the right approach. So that's why I say Paris Johnson might not be an all-pro offensive tackle in his first or second year, but you hope this guy's playing for your team for 10 years, right? It's not necessarily about the first two that aren't even in a winning window anyways. It's about when you get to that winning window, this guy is starting caliber because he showed you the ceiling to become that. And I just think that that's where the Cardinals are. And that's why the pick of Paris Johnson, to me, was such a great one.
I want to do an exercise here with you. I want to use the old PFF mock draft simulator.
Okay, all
and
right.
put you on the spot. We didn't tell you about this, but we want to have you do the Cardinals because you and your colleagues have the Cardinals 1 and 2 in this draft. I want to see if you're going to make the pick at the top, if you're going to trade down, who you would take, and also who that maybe that second round pick is. Trevor Sikkema is putting on his Monty Ossenfort costume, and he's going to make the selections here for the Arizona Cardinals. Are you ready to go, Trevor?
I am ready to go. Yes.
I can't believe we're back here doing this. We did this ad nauseum. We love this side. Our audience loves this, by the way. And only the Cardinals, after their draft, were immediately looking to 2024. I want to do this with you, Trev, but afterwards, we got to get your take on Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the top of this draft, because we're infatuated by it, and it's going to be a year-round thing on this podcast. But all right, so we're kicking it off.
Yeah.
This is Arizona's true pick. So Houston is picking second. Arizona is picking first. In a scenario like this, Trev, is this a scenario where you keep Kyler Murray and you trade down, or what do you do here?
If you're picking number 1 and number 2 in this draft, I think you're probably taking Caleb, right? And there's so many things that are at play here with Kyler Murray. But I think that something that is worrisome is, of course, the general manager and the head coach that selected and wanted to build this team around Kyler Murray are no longer there. Kyler's also coming off injury, right? And Kyler has had spurts where he has almost looked like MVP caliber level. And so if you are confident in that and you say, that's still our guy, then that's fine. But you're also in a situation with his contract, which is tricky, right? Because he's coming off of injury. He's probably not playing much next year. So you go, okay, then is the year after that, can we really expect him to hit the ground running? If you can, maybe you can salvage that deal that you signed him to. But if not, then all of a sudden you're paying a lot of money to a quarterback when the rest of the roster is not even ready to be at that caliber of a winning window anyways. And so to me, it would make the most sense if they truly do have picks 1 and 2 next year, or shoot, even number 1 and another top 5 pick. It doesn't even have to be 1 and 2. To me, it would make more sense to reset the rookie quarterback timer, knowing that you get the 5th-year option with that you have more time to build a team. So if you're putting me in that seat right now, if they would have the number 1 overall pick, the trade they would get back would be 3 first-round picks minimum for a guy like this. But for the sake of this, I'm probably just going to draft Caleb Williams at 1.
All right. The pick is in. Caleb Williams, USC. He's an Arizona Cardinal. All right. Number 2, I think this is a little bit easier, right? You don't have to break down the thought process behind this one. 2nd overall pick in the 2024 draft.
Yeah,
it's Joe Alt, right? That's who we're taking.
So listen, I'm not going to take Joe Alt, but I'll tell you, this is the pick I would shop. This is the one that I still think that you could get a ton of value for. Because as of right now, I think Caleb Williams is QB1 in this draft. Now, I haven't gone through summer scouting. I haven't really put these guys through the microscope, but just from what I've seen of Caleb Williams, it's unbelievable. I mean, he might have been QB1 in this draft, right? He might have gone number 1 overall if he would have been draft eligible. So I'm probably taking Caleb Williams at number 1, but the rest of this class is so intriguing. You've got Joe Alt, you got Olu Fashanu, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., right? There's so many guys on the board. And if I was making this pick for the Cardinals, basically for the same 1 in, 1 out with Kyler Murray's big contract and Caleb Williams getting a 5-year deal as a rookie, I'd be making the Caleb Williams pick. I'd do the same with Marvin Harrison Jr. Like I would just have that 1-2 for the next 5 years guaranteed and let the rest of the roster build the way that it should. But honestly, man, you might not get the 3 first-round picks and more because you're not trading for Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
But somebody's trading up for somebody, right? Can you imagine if Drake May is seen as just as good as Caleb Williams, how much you could then get for the 2nd overall pick? Because let me tell you guys, Howie Roseman has done this so well for the Philadelphia Eagles. He has built the dynasty because he has continued to trade back and acquire multiple premium picks, multiple first-round picks in future years down the line. And that's why the Eagles are sitting here and we go, how did this team get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and all these guys? Again, they just went to the Super Bowl. Well, the reason why is because Howie Roseman has been going about this in an incredibly smart way. The best part about this trade from 3 to 12 and then 12 to 6, getting the extra first and third round picks that we saw in this year's draft, is that it doesn't even have to end with that. You can multiply that even more depending on how Houston finishes last year. So don't just sit here and say, oh, hey, we did a great job, got an extra first round pick. If it behooves you, if it is more advantageous to trade back again, especially what next year's class might look like, set up the dynasty, baby. That's well, I would say that I'd be very tempted to trade down from number 2, but Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. It's too good of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, it's not a bad haul. We're here in the second round. This is the first pick of the second round. This is the last pick of our draft. Trev, who you like? I mean, you could continue to build the lines, continue to pick premium positions, tackle, maybe go back to edge rusher, complement BJ Ujulari on the other side. What do you like?
I know. Okay. I like Malachi Moore a lot. He's very, very talented. If you scroll down a little, Johnny Wilson's also intriguing. Michael Hall is super talented. Mike Neighbors is so good. Man, this draft is so much fun. Okay, keep going a little bit. All right, Jack Sawyer's great as well. Dang, man.
The interior of the defensive line is pretty bad here in Arizona.
I was going to say, I'm leaning Michael Hall. So he hasn't had a big time breakout yet, but he does have some extremely nice flashes. Now, there are a handful of Ohio State defensive linemen that I think a lot of people are projecting for them to be high draft picks when really they're kind of, I don't want to say coasting off of their recruiting status, but they just have not fully proven it yet at the college level. But Michael Hall is one of those players who I think can be a really good interior defensive lineman. So we'll go Michael Hall here. You're right. They need something along the interior defensive line. So we'll go
a little beef. You got to love it. I mean, their uniforms look similar. They just took Paris Johnson Jr. I mean, they're basically Ohio State West. Let's just do that. Let's just go all in.
There you go.
Well, the grades are being calculated. It's taking a hot minute. I think we didn't break the machine with our draft being so elite. I hope not, but we got an A+ for Caleb Williams. I know how Marvin Harrison Jr. is an A-. And then we got Michael Hall Jr. as a C. But
wow, PFF
Cardinals
haters. PFF haters. Dude. They're just haters.
You hear that? We did this all throughout the course of the offseason into draft season, and there were some PFF darlings that PFF loved. And then Bo and I would kick around like, are we going to see some of these guys maybe go like late day 3 that are just projected to go high? Who's the quarterback that was
Tanner McKee?
Tanner. PFF loved Tanner McKee. Trevor, was that you?
My former colleague and very good friend of mine who I love, Mike Renner. He was the lead draft analyst at PFF for such a long time. One of the best draft minds in the game. He loved Tanner McKee, man. And it was so funny throughout the whole draft process. Like myself and so many of the guys at PFF, we were just like, really? Like, you love him that much? And so like we had to, and he was just like, dude, I'm telling you, he's got the big arm. And look, I will give Mike this. I don't know if was a worse offensive line that any draft eligible quarterback played behind, including Will Levis, than what I saw Tanner McKee have to deal with. So maybe it's a longer project for him. You know, he gets in the NFL, he kind of figures things out, maybe gets his starting shot, you know, in 2-3 years, whatever it is. But Mike was a big fan of Tanner McKee, and thus the big board had him a lot higher than I would have.
Unreal. He's Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus. Check him out on Twitter. Check out his fantastic work at pff.com. Trevor, friend of the program, thank you so much. We can't wait to pick your brain all throughout the course of the NFL season and the college football season as we gear up for the 2024 NFL draft, where the Cardinals, who knows, might have 2 top 5 picks. Thank you so much, brother, for joining the show.
Appreciate it, guys. Anytime.